What's up, y'all, and welcome to another episode of What's Good Music. I'm your host, Gavin.
And this is Zach.
And today, we're going to bless y'all with our review of the Weeknd's second mixtape off the trilogy, Thursday.
Here's how this is going to go.
Why?
Like I said, before even going on mics, it's a dark album. It's a very deep, conceptual album.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things you can miss listening through this all the way through, and that you will find later on down the road that you definitely just skipped off on. So
correct. You definitely have to pay attention and really listen to what he's saying and not just let it just play in the background, because he's telling a story, and I'm pretty sure it's somewhat of a true story, or at least was inspired by a true story that he actually dealt with, which the entire trilogy is pretty much stories of his life before he even was creating music. And I love the trilogy as a whole. You know, I can just play the whole thing on repeat.
Probably the best era of the Weeknd.
Absolutely. I know we talked about, you know, would you want him to get back on drugs to recreate that type of music? And I was like, yes. I know it's bad, but at the same time, I don't even know if he needs to get back on drugs to make that type of music. I mean, he came back to that dark tone with My Dear Melancholy, and that album is just, it's 6 songs of nothing but perfection. I love shit out of that album, or I should call it an EP. Call out my name. Yeah. But Wasted Times, man. That's
one I gotta divulge into.
Try Me. Oh boy.
Let's. But besides that album, let's get back to the topic at hand. We got track 1. So this week we're gonna go a little bit more in depth. We actually got notes.
Yeah, we're not just free minding it.
Balling. But first track on the album itself is Lonely Star. That is the opening track. Basically, I feel this is just like the introduction track, introducing his Lonely Star and his Thursday Girl. I think it's a good intro for 100%.
Correct. He meets this girl who obviously we know as Valerie.
Yep. And
he's basically saying, hey, I want you to be my Thursday girl. You know, I call you on Thursdays, we hook up, you come to parties with me, and your only day is Thursday.
Yep. And
you only get me for Thursday, but, you know, I can give you all the cars, the clothes, the money, you'll have all the fame and be known as like one of my girls. Again, your only day is Thursday.
Basically, it kind of it sets up the whole album as an idea of how this is going to go. The toxic traits of what comes with drugs and money, what comes along with those things when you are physical with someone. Also, it romanticizes that lustfulness of someone you can't have.
And to open the track, you can hear the background. She's just saying yes. She just keeps repeating yes. All I can say is yes. She's just so adored with the Weeknd that she doesn't even give a fuck. She doesn't even care. She's probably not even really realizing what he's telling her at first. Like, hey, like your only day is Thursday.
Yep.
And that, you know, I'm not looking for we're not in a relationship. It is what it is.
It's just lustfulness. It's just like everything is just dialed in on just like that, with no recognition of what's going to outplay any other day.
Correct.
Not really caring about her feelings, not really caring about what's the repercussions going to be. So I think as a introduction track, definitely starts out, it gives you an idea of what the whole album itself is going to be about, and honestly it stays on track all the way through. This is literally, like you said, a storyline of what we could believe is a period of time in his life that is going to bring you love, darkness, and just kind of gives you an insight of what it really is like in his perspective.
Correct. And like his lifestyle at that time, which was nothing but drugs, women, and just always constantly moving. He always getting evicted and not really having any money.
It's crazy to think, like, and we mentioned this last week when we did Thank Me Later. It's just like we followed along these artists in this era to where like we grew up with them. We continuously navigated and we kind of grew with them. So like going through and listening to some of these songs, like it just resonates to a certain degree. I wasn't really into the drugs and the alcohol, but like the lustfulness of having someone you can't have, like that's something I could
relate to. Yeah, absolutely.
So it's one of those things to where it just resonates, and I guess that's why we like this type of genre of music to the day.
Yeah, and I think it does. We like it obviously because it was ours. Like The Weeknd, which I tell people all the time, like I'm glad he came out my generation and like he belongs to my generation. Obviously anybody can listen to him, that's not what I'm saying, but obviously Michael Jackson is our parents' generation. Like we've all listened and loved Michael Jackson, but he's still our parents.
But these are our artists,
right? These are artists we grew up with. These were the artists that came up when we were in high school, when we were really getting into music and finding what we were really into.
Exactly. Like no one can take.
Correct.
This is what helped mold us today.
Correct. And I mean, shit, when this dropped, it was back when we didn't even really know who The Weeknd was. He was very, very secretive. Like there was no pictures of him or anything. The only people that really saw him at the time was the people who went to a few of his like shows, maybe at a bar or something in local Toronto. You know, the local scene. I remember when people thought it was a band. They weren't sure, like, if it was just one guy, one girl, or whatever.
I didn't even know that. I didn't hear about all that.
Oh, you don't remember when people were thinking, like, because I remember specifically people, when The Weeknd first started dropping music, they kept calling him them, as in, obviously.
The Weeknd. Like, it sounds like
a group, yeah, you know.
All right, so Lonely Star, do you want to do a rating system like we did last time?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we can tell the story. Also, yeah, we can rate it. As a song, I'd probably give it a 7.
7.
I think great opening. Definitely a good opening to the album. I mean, he's not only talking, and that's one good thing about The Weeknd, he's not only talking to Valerie in the story, he's talking to us. Yeah. Yes.
There's a lot of different perspectives, whether it's first person, second person, and third person throughout this whole album. Introduction, I think it sets the tone for what the album's supposed to be, and you know exactly what you're going to get. It is honestly one of the songs, it literally just converses into I think 2 small verses, and just I think the choruses are the big chunks of this song. Melody wise, just hits. It's a vibe. Probably on the album itself a solid 8, just because again sets the tone right. It does what it needs to, and it kind of gives you everything that you need. It gives you all the information that you need to divulge more into the album going forward. So I think it's definitely set up right.
Good deal.
Yeah. Do you want to song? Do you want to play?
So yeah, Life of the Party. This is where after she says, yes, I'll be your Thursday. I don't care. I just want to be with you for whatever that costs. So he's like, okay. So then he brings her into his world, and bam, that's what this song is about. Yep. It's showing not only her but us as the audience his world.
It's literally taking a rich girl who has no idea what this lifestyle entails, and she's one of these girls that just enjoys having just white stuff in her nose, just about the coke scene, and he is trying to just bring her into his world.
She might not have even necessarily been in that. I probably feel like he more introduced her to that.
Yeah. When I was listening to it, I really thought that this perspective was for a different girl, to be honest, and this was just
a different day,
and he had his lonely star or his Thursday girl waiting at home patiently. That's what I got from this.
I agree. In a lot of these songs, you can tell that he might be talking to a different day, but I do think that this one is still Valerie. Because to be honest, I think Lonely Star, when he basically meets her, and Life of the Party is still the same Thursday.
Like it's just taking that step forward.
Yeah,
next track.
Yeah, after she agreed to be his Thursday, then he's like, okay, well, come to this party with me. And
I can see that.
Yeah.
Okay. I think this is the ambiance of the song is very lustful. It's a very introductory track to describe what the toxic temptations that comes with his types of lifestyle, and you can definitely tell with how eerie, and like when you listen to the track, you have the heavy 808s, you have the really sharp snares, and it's just like you can get lost and just feel like what that moment would feel like. I really think that really, it just portrays a great image to give you as the listener what it would be like in that scenario.
Correct. And especially if you've, as a person, been in that type of scenario, then you can obviously relate. And he starts the track, his first line is "Welcome to the other side."
Exactly.
So yeah, he brings her in this world, and he also lets her know that she's here to please his boys too, not just him. There's a line in there where he talks about pleasing his boys, so that is another example of how she's nothing to him, and that, like, hey, you're not only fucking me, but you're gonna be basically passed around with the rest of the...
See, even with that, with what you just stated, with it entails like her pleasing his boys as well, like that's something like you have to listen to this album and these songs over and over again to really divulge and to get everything that you're going to get out of these lyrics. Because, plain example, I missed that.
Right.
Listened to it 5 times throughout the whole week.
Yeah.
Even reading the lyrics, still missed it.
Yeah. It's okay. I guarantee you, even though I had the lyrics up when I was listening to it, I'm sure I still missed some things. You truly have to really be focused, and it's hard sometimes when you do like the music, because then you just kind of like, you get low and you just kind of vibe, and your attention span kind of drops a little bit because you just want to be in the music and just listen.
And I think that kind of goes back to what this album is all about. It's like, it's so easy to get lost with the melodies he produces with it, also the beats that you're going to get from it, the samples, but also too the feeling that he brings within his vocals as a whole. There's a lot to this album, there's a lot to this song, and as a person who likes to divulge and just like really dissect what's being done within the beats itself as a producer standpoint, it's very simple, very to the T. It gives him a lot of room to really do what he needs to with his vocals, and I love that.
Yeah,
I love that to a T.
I think whoever he got to produce all 3 mixtapes, and I'm sure they vary depending on each mixtape, but the production on all 3 of them was just nuts.
I think the most consistent producer within Thursday was Il Angelo. The Weeknd would produce some. Doc McKinley would produce some songs here and there, but I think really which producer was the most consistent throughout this whole 10 tracks?
It's 9, and then
10 is Valerie.
Yeah, when he made the trilogy, he recorded 3 new songs, so 1 for each mixtape.
Yeah, but I really think Il Angelo was really the most consistent for like the executive producer.
Oh, I got you.
As a song itself, like I said, this is one of my favorite songs off the album. I think it's probably going to be a close first, but I'm going to put it at a solid second for me. So okay. I think it's, me personally, it's going to definitely be a 9. 9,
I got you.
All the way through.
Not really that much of a favorite of mine. I think it drags a little bit. Not one I go to on the album. Definitely was not one of my favorites at all in high school. To be honest, when this album came out in high school, I only liked 2 songs off of it, and I constantly overlooked it. But as I got older, I dived more into it and truly listened to it. I'm like, oh, this thing's fucking amazing.
Let me try to The Zone. Or
see, I didn't even like Valerie when he first dropped the trilogy.
Really?
Yeah,
I loved Valerie.
I liked obviously 28 and Till Dawn, Here Comes the Sun.
Yep.
But the Valerie one, I wasn't feeling. It's definitely The Zone and Thursday.
Okay.
The song Thursday. Love the production on that.
Okay. That's the next one coming up.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that in a minute.
I definitely wouldn't have guessed that. The Zone for 100% just because of
yeah. No, not a bad song though. It definitely, I like it a lot more now than I did. I'd probably give it a 7.
Okay.
Still love the story of it, and I think that's what ranks it a little bit higher for me.
Yeah. I really think this is one of the songs where it's a late night drive. I'm just like windows down, just blasting. If I have something going on emotionally, like I'm in my feelings, I'm overthinking.
Yeah,
this is this is one of the songs where it's just like it's getting blasted all the way through.
So I got 7. You said 9.
Yep.
All right.
It's 9 from me. It's 9 from me, Playboy.
So after he shows Valerie, his world, and basically shows her how she's going to be, or what she's going to be as far as his Thursday, then he gets into the song Thursday, which awesome production. The initial beat just sets it actually drops the tone and makes it a lot more atmospheric, and it makes it even darker, because the first 2 songs were a little bit more
heavy on the drums.
Yeah, and I would say a little bit more poppy or bright, I guess.
I would really call this, in retrospect, even though it's not what it's called, but from a music standpoint within the album itself, I really think I could see it as an interlude or transition track for the album.
I mean, yeah, I think it
down just like how an interlude would,
because this is where the story really starts to pick up.
Yeah.
Because it's not Thursday. It's not actually Thursday, so it's not Valerie's day.
No.
But she keeps calling him, and he's like, "What's up? What do you want? Like, it's not your day. Why you keep calling me?"
Basically, it's describing how his feelings are changing on each day that isn't Thursday.
Right, how her feelings are.
Yeah.
And he's telling her it's Wednesday, like, with my Wednesday girl.
Yep. What are you doing?
Like, what do you need? Why are you calling me?
This ain't your day.
It's not.
I can't really think of what the song. Can't think of the track. So basically, I mean, this track itself, like I said, it slows down a good bit mood wise. Like I said, it definitely feels more of a transitional track, because the song after this, you get the same vibe. You kind of just immerse yourself. It's slows down the BPM. It's not as heavy on the drums. It's very, very melancholy.
Yeah, very atmospheric, yeah. Which he's become known for. And this is where the story really picks up, and we start learning that Valerie's starting to get attached,
yeah.
And she's starting to really fall in love with the Weeknd, and that she's not being able to handle just being a Thursday girl. And he keeps telling her, like, hey, just wait till Thursday. It's okay. It's one day. It's already Wednesday. I'm gonna see you tomorrow.
Yep.
It's all good.
Yep.
I'm still with my Wednesday girl.
I'm still with my other hoe.
Which are crazy. The whole concept of this whole album is like he's got a girl for every day of the week. That's fucking nuts. But
wishful thinking for us back in the day.
I know. I was happy to just have one girl for every day of the week, but a different girl for every day of the week.
Yep. I really think, like I said, transitional piece for the album itself. Honestly, it's just telling a story of how this girl is feeling throughout the week when it's not her day. He's trying to be somewhat like reassuring, like, hey, it's tomorrow. Like, you'll be fine. It's Wednesday. This is not your day. Wait till tomorrow. Stop
blowing up my phone.
Yep. This is not it.
Yeah.
So, as a song itself, I think it's hard to rate this one just because of the sole fact it's not a lot to it.
There isn't. Before I actually really dived into what he was talking about, I would just go to it just for the vibe.
Yeah.
And he, in my mind, not really listening to it, I was always telling people he doesn't really say much of anything. He's kind of repetitive.
Yeah.
Like on the outside, if you're not paying attention to the story, it's a very kind of repetitive, and
it consists of mainly 3 choruses and 2 verses, and the 2 verses itself are 6 lines apiece.
Yeah, but again, when you actually dive into it, he is saying a lot. He's saying a
good bit, but it's just like it's one of those transitional pieces in my mind, and you get a lot out of it while he's giving you very little.
Correct. So, and even if you're not paying attention to the story aspect of it, it is an amazing song to put on just a vibe to. If you're just looking for something in the background, if you're having a few drinks, if whatever your vice is, no judgment here. Nope. We've all experimented. So I give it a 10. Again, my number 1 favorite song from this mixtape from day one.
Yep.
Before I even really dived into it, and it's an absolute favorite that I always go back to. One of the top old OG Weeknd songs that I go back to. So full 10 for me.
Okay, I think I'm gonna go honestly vibe itself, because like I said, there's not really a whole lot of meat here to really go off of. It's more just you're going off the vibe. You're going off the atmosphere it provides for you. Go a strong 8.5.
Okay.
Because that's like, again, like you said, it's one of those songs to where, like, if you want to immerse yourself in something, this is one of them.
Yeah.
This is one of them for sure for the album. So I think that's a solid line. All right, next we got The Zone. I mean, that's
a classic.
That's a classic.
That's the one.
That's the first Weeknd Drake link up on the Weeknd's discography.
Yeah, the first song that had Drake featured by the Weeknd. We'll have to probably do some real timeline research to just, because I would imagine this and Crew Love, which the Weeknd gave Drake Crew Love anyway.
Yep.
So I would imagine they probably recorded this at the same exact time. So they're probably both from the same session, I would imagine. And I don't know the full extent of it. Maybe the Weeknd already had his entire verse for Crew Love recorded, and then he just gave it to Drake, and Drake just, chopped it up a little bit to make the Weeknd more of a chorus, and then he would just spit his verse on it. But yeah, The Zone is a very good song. Definitely one to put on when you're in the zone. But back to the story aspect of it. So after Valerie was blowing up his phone, wanting to be with him, he gives in to her.
Yep.
And he ditches the Wednesday girl to go see her. But he's letting her know, like, I'm still giving you what you called for, but I'm still making love to her through you.
Yep.
Meaning I don't have any feeling for you. Like, and also, he needs to get in his zone to even do this.
He has to.
See, he has to be fucked up for him to even sleep with you.
Yep.
And if that's not a big fuck you, I don't know really. Like, he tells you that he's making love to his other girl through you, and that he can't even fuck you unless he's fucked up.
Yep.
I mean, that's, to me, a big middle finger.
Like, I feel like me in general, like, I can't, if I don't feel that way, even if I'm intoxicated, whether it's drugs or alcohol, still can't get up. Still not gonna prefer.
Well, maybe that's what he was kind of trying to say too. Like, maybe he was hoping that it would cause him not to be able to perform, so he wouldn't have to, because it's not her day. Yeah, but maybe he doesn't necessarily want to. Maybe he likes the look of her. Maybe he does like something about her, but just not enough, obviously, he's not looking for relationships, but he likes her. I would imagine he likes her body. Just hanging with her on that Thursday. Obviously, like we talked about, no matter what the relationship style is, you got to like something about the girl to stick your dick in her.
Yeah. I want to divulge and I want to dissect one of my favorite lines off this song to this day. Like, when I first heard it, it's Drake's first opening line. There's all these broken hearts on this pole. If pole dancing was an art, you know how many fucking artists I know.
Right.
Basically, it is a very cliche of
talking about strippers.
Yeah, why pole dancers get into dancing themselves is just because they have either broken hearts or daddy issues.
Correct.
And basically going off that, and a lot of people don't really classify as stripping as a performing art, but it's an art within itself. So it's a very double entendre playing on words.
Yeah.
And it just hits.
Yeah, no, he has a really good verse on it. Looking back on it now, it's definitely a vibe and a style of music that doesn't really fit him. Like, how dark The Weeknd is not Drake.
I really did like how he went that. Like,
yeah,
he tipped his toes.
I think it was definitely a good time in his career because he was still up and coming.
I would love another feature like this, a little bit more darker.
I would just love a Weeknd and Drake song. I mean, I don't really care what kind of, it could be a pop song for all I give a fuck.
One of them fucked up the relationship. I'm gonna just say it probably was Drake.
As the years gone on, Drake has always seemed to try to mend fences, but I think The Weeknd just doesn't fuck with him.
Yeah.
Like, their initial thing was that Drake wanted to sign him to OVO, and Weeknd was like, no, I don't need you, dude. And that's the one thing I think that's always turned The Weeknd off by Drake is like, yeah, dude, like, early on, you did kind of help me out because you were already on and we collabed together, but at the same time, I agree, I don't think he would have needed it. I think all it did was just speed up the process.
Because he had everything what an artist of his caliber really needed.
Correct. And yeah, obviously for a lot of people, the first time they heard The Weeknd was Crew Love. But again, if he wasn't on that, it probably would have took a little bit longer, but he would have found stardom.
There's a reference to Crew Love within this verse itself. She's in love with my crew. And honestly, that just kind of plays back on what you said earlier. Crew Love that beat was supposed to be on Thursday. Right. So, well,
it was the Weeknd song.
Yeah.
And you can even tell the atmosphere when that song starts that it's the
same vibe.
Yeah.
It's the same vibe. This is probably the number one song on the album for me. I mean, it may just be the bias act just because Drake's on it, but... No,
again, when the album first came out in high school, I only liked this one and Thursday, and I played the shit out of this song in high school.
Yeah. I think itself, as a whole, I'm going to go 9.5. Atmosphere of it, the way it immerses you into the beat itself, and then you get a lot more meat and potatoes in this track than honestly the first 3 songs. There's a lot more to it.
Yeah,
a lot more verses. The choruses are a little bit longer, and this is also the only feature on the album.
Yes.
So I'm gonna go 9.5.
I would also give it a 10. I do think it's a perfect song, and again, a song I go back to all the time. And Drake's verse is great, and The Weeknd also really showcases his singing ability. Mm-hmm. I mean, he hits them notes, man, and it's it's almost like a lullaby almost.
Yeah.
Again, like this whole album as a whole, even if you don't just follow the story, you could just put it on and just vibe to it. It's just, the production is so great.
I believe it's by Il Angelo again. The co-producer is that Doc McKinley guy I mentioned earlier. Again, like I said, I think that's been that's the consistent producer on the album, and you can definitely tell because it has some of the same sounds, as some of the same feelings, and this is was made particularly for The Weeknd. Like, these songs were just for The Weeknd.
Right.
All right, we got track 5. We got The Birds Part 1.
Birds Part 1. And this is where Valerie is really going through it. She is fucking losing her mind. She is wanting a full-on relationship. Like, I am sick of this one day a week thing. I'm sick of you being with these other girls. Like, I love you. I need to be with you. And The Weeknd is just like, I told you this is not what I was after.
Yeah.
You agreed to just be Thursday. And I told you, don't fall in love with a guy like me.
Basically, he's telling her he's not going to hesitate to leave her and leave her lonely. Like, it's plain and simple. He's gone over this plenty of times and just basically reiterating for her not to fall because he's not going to be there to catch her.
Correct.
Simple as that. I think this is more, obviously it's a 2-part. It's the first part of a 2-part track series. I really don't know. This is when it starts to get into more of the conceptual part of it. There's not a lot to the song, just like Thursday. It's just very short verses with just chorus, and it's just mainly vocals. And it's one of the songs where you really have to, if you don't have the lyrics in front of you and you're just vibing out, you're gonna miss so much out of it.
Right. And even the title, The Birds Part 1, Part 2, that's even somewhat of a metaphor for what he's saying, that he's just a bird. He'll fly in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Like, again, don't fall in love with a guy like me. I'm not looking to be tied down. Like,
yeah, he doesn't want to be held responsible for whatever feelings you or her adjustments and heads up that she needs to, this is what it is.
Right.
Like, the communication has been there. It's on you now. If you fall in love, that's not on me.
Correct. And, he's reiterating to her, I thought we had an agreement early on, and I'm sorry. I can't help you. I don't know what you want from me.
We want to go to part 1?
Yeah, then we go, then part 2, and this is where she kills herself.
It starts off single gunshot. So, honestly, did you know this was a sample?
No.
Yeah. So this is, I found this out, Martina Topley Bird. That's her last name. So kind of a play on
the title
as well. But I went and really gave the original song, it was Sandpaper Kisses, and obviously that's referenced in some of the lyrics of The Bird Part 2. Just very dark, very eerie, and it's very a melodic tone that just, it gives you that really not harsh feeling, but it really brings down the vibe. Like, all right, there's this toxic energy being brought around, and obviously it's from her killing herself.
Yeah.
So, and you definitely feel that within the track, within the melody itself, and within the sample. And I like how you can hear the dark crows calling out at the end of the song.
That was what I was saying. It's at the end of the track, isn't it?
Yep. So you got a lot of sounds in this track that really tell a good story just themselves. Like, you get a eerie tone, you get the crows, and you get gunshots. So it really sets the tone.
And there's a line where he talks about, I guess Valerie was asking him to let her fall out of love with him before he goes and fucks another girl. He references that in the track. So I guess that was before she killed herself.
I think so.
Yeah, man. I also think this is a just good example overall of like how toxic relationships can be deadly to some people.
It's such a good feeling though, sometimes.
What's a good feeling?
The intoxication that the feeling gives you.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, it sucks when, you know, in any type of relationship, when like one has more feeling for the other than the other has for that person.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not discrediting that feeling, because it does fucking suck.
Yeah.
But when you are deep in that lust and you know it's toxic for you, but it just feels so good.
Yeah, there's definitely a point where it's just like you don't care if you're getting hurt or whatever. You just like any type of interaction you have with that person, just, yeah, it feels good.
Listening to the sample I mentioned earlier, what do you think? Going from obviously The Birds Part 2 and then seeing the similarities from the sample and what he used in his song, what do you think?
I mean, I think it was good. It was definitely a cool sample.
It's a sample, like us, me and you, we would never come across that artist.
Yeah.
That's not an artist.
To be honest, I was going to mention, she kind of reminded me of Inya.
Yep. Honestly, like early Lana too.
Yeah, which Lana is like the female version of The Weeknd.
Yeah, it makes total sense later on down in his career with them linking up continuously, because they make awesome music. They make some tracks,
dude. Like I said, she is literally the female version of The Weeknd. She's nice.
That's an artist we need to go into, because when she referenced her pussy tastes like Pepsi Cola,
I might have missed that song.
I knew she was toxic. But all right, off track. The Bird Part 2 as a whole itself, what are you giving it?
Well, we didn't rate Part 1, so Birds Part 1 and Part 2 we could probably rate as a whole.
Yeah.
I think for songs themselves, I would give them both probably a 7 collectively. I think they're a good turning point in the story, because this is where obviously she kills herself, because, well, if I can't be with you, then, you know, there's no reason to live, and obviously that's not true.
Yeah.
But obviously there's been people in this world that have felt like that. They've been through very traumatic relationships, and again, it sucks when you have feelings for a person that does not share those feelings, and it's the trials and tribulations of relationships.
See, these two as a collective, it's hard, because it's more along telling a story than anything. They're very unorthodox songs put together as verses and choruses and post-choruses put together. Songs on the album as a whole for both Part 1 and Part 2, I probably would give them probably a 5. They're definitely a little bit more on the slower end. I think probably Part 2 is one I'm going to stick around and listen to, that I don't skip Part 1. I kind of just let it slide if it comes on in the car.
You said you like Part 1 better?
I like Part 2 better.
Oh, Part 2 better, yeah. Okay.
I think it gives it more of an eerie feeling. To me personally, that's a better vibe that I will always relate more to.
Okay.
I know Part 1 kind of like works its way into it, but you kind of get that visualization of her with the gunshot killing herself. where you get that feeling of that gunshot going off, and she's you realize that she just killed herself, and it kind of just gets right into the eeriness of the song and has so much to the beat itself. It's more just a vibe at that point,
right?
And that's all you're chasing. As a song itself, when it comes to like lyrics, it's a good, like, part 2 has a good sample on it. Part 1 is just, I guess, just an intro, like the first half of really what the story is telling you about with these 2 songs. So it's just, I'd rather get straight to the point.
Yeah.
So I think solid 5 for both of them.
I agree. Again, these were not songs when this album first came out that I was going back to. To be honest, in high school, I was not feeling the production of a majority of this album. That's why I didn't go back to it. But then as I went back, as I got older, I started feeling production a lot more. Yeah. And again, when I started listening to what he was saying and started realizing the story, I'm like, this shit is deep as fuck.
It's one those few songs where it's just like, I like them as a whole with the whole album, but it's not like something I will go and pick and choose.
Right.
Just one song.
Right.
I'm gonna go and strictly listen to that.
Right.
Yeah. So, all right, track 7, we got Gone. The title says itself. So I believe like this one is really just a deep sonnet of like Abel's willingness to just sink into the drugs and alcohol after this girl has passed.
Yeah.
I believe it's just a conversation between him and his feelings about the girl that he actually truly had.
Yeah.
Or even just had a conversation with him and the girl, even though she has passed, just like what that conversation would look like. I feel like that's what I kind of perceived from it.
Yeah, I feel you on that. I think it's also showing that he's also just going back to what he was doing, basically acting like nothing had just happened.
Yeah,
like trying to maybe just bury her memory, like. I think
it's more foreshadowing coming up to the next, like not the next song, but a few songs
coming up to the end of the end of the
it's just foreshadowing something, like just drowning the feelings that he may or may not have. He's very confused about if he actually did love her.
Correct, because he's trying to live this life of just, again, he's got a different girl for every day of the week, so he's just trying to be like a fucking cool kid, and just living this life of drugs, alcohol, trying to become a big music star, and all these local women want him and everything. And then it also he probably never had a girl really fall for him that much, probably at that point, and then she straight up killed himself. I could only imagine whether you at the time realize you had any type of feelings for her or not, it still probably it sends shockwaves to your brain, like, damn, I maybe not even realize that she liked me that much. Like, she straight up killed herself because I didn't want to be in a relationship. Like, I wasn't taking it that seriously, but maybe he almost feels responsible for her killing herself, which I would imagine he never intended. Sure, he had no malice when he set her up as his Thursday girl. He never wanted anything bad to happen to her. He may not have wanted a relationship, and but I would imagine, definitely didn't hate the girl.
I also think the way this song is set up, it starts with a verse straight off the rip. This is the first verse out of 3, and the more we divulge more into the song, the longer the verses get. I think the first verse is 4 lines, second verse is I think 8, and then the final verse is, the third one is like, I want to say 32 verses, which is, there's a lot of meat there.
Yeah,
there's a lot of meat there. And basically he's having this conversation about, like, he's already gone, like, from the drugs and alcohol, but also too, I think it's also portraying the word gone of her being gone as well, and that's why he's drowning himself with the alcohol and the drugs in this very moment. Not like he doesn't do it every other day for his lifestyle, but this I feel like it definitely had a different, more of a different meaning.
Now he's kind of got a reason for getting fucked up.
Yeah, exactly. This is actually one of the few songs that The Weeknd helped Doc McKinley and Il Angelo produce. So he actually got his first producing credits for this album. I think you want to play it real quick so I can't think of the. I kind of want to with this track. I feel like this was the first track we kind of got introduced in this era of music that we were listening to that actually like it had a secondary breakdown. Like it slowed down and the track changed BPM within the track itself.
Yeah,
because you have your verse 1, your verse 2, and then you have your chorus, and then it has that breakdown and goes straight into verse 3, which is why it's so long. And I feel like we should have got more of that in this era, because those breakdowns we didn't really start seeing. Honestly, between Drake and The Weeknd more until like 2013-14 era. Like I want to say, what's his second album? Something of Madness.
Beauty Behind the Madness.
Beauty Behind the Madness. We didn't see breakdowns more until like that album, and then we didn't see like really breakdowns until Nothing Was the Same from Drake.
Yeah, I mean, well, on Take Care there were beat switch ups.
I feel like we didn't. There were, but I feel like there wasn't.
Like maybe I'm not understanding exactly what you're.
Like we didn't start seeing them more often.
Okay.
Until like that era. Because you got to think there's a time between the trilogy and Beauty Behind the Madness. There was a difference in timeline between the trilogy and Beauty Behind the Madness, and then there was definitely a timeline between Take Care and Nothing Was the Same. There's a good few years where I feel like we could have got a whole lot more music going into more breakdowns, like switch ups within the beats.
Yeah,
I really like that about this track. Other than that, as the track itself, it picks back up within the album after The Bird Part 2. So it kind of gets back onto...
Yeah, because I think it's, again, he's trying, in this song, he's basically saying that, like, this girl killed herself. I don't really know how to feel about it, but I'm still just doing what I've done without basically acting like nothing happened. Mm-hmm. And I basically, at this point, I don't know how to feel about it, but I'm definitely drowning whatever I'm feeling in more drugs and alcohol and more women too. I would imagine at this point he's got another Thursday girl.
I don't know. I feel like that's where, again, like I referenced later on down the line, when we kind of get more into Valerie, the additional track from the trilogy that was supposed to be on this. I feel like he's tossing and turning with the feelings that he may or may have not actually did love her. I don't know if it's the drugs talking or the alcohol talking, but there's some feelings there to where like he can't shake, which is why we're getting into this song.
True. And again, he can't shake them, but he also doesn't really understand what he's feeling.
Exactly. So I think as a track itself, it picks back up, which I love. It kind of rolls back into finishing off the album very strong, because there was a transitional period in the last 3 to 4 songs, and then now we're getting back up. It's feeling more upbeat, and you kind of can feel that within the album itself, like it's about to end. Like the story is coming to an end.
Right.
As a track itself, I think I'm going to give it probably an 8. The production itself, great. I love the breakdown. I love how they section everything off when it came down to the verses. What it's telling, it's very relatable. To me, I can kind of just more relate to like these feelings I don't like he just doesn't know what to do with.
Right. And
he is just drowning himself within the drugs and the alcohol to try to shake him, but they're just making him more amplified.
Yeah, I agree. I think I would give it probably a 7. Not one of my go-tos on this album. Definitely a good look into how he's feeling after this. Yeah. Again, it shows me that he has no idea how he's feeling, but he's just gonna try to keep it moving, keep doing what he's doing, still fucking all his other girls. Also, I guess showing too that at this time he still didn't really give a fuck about Valerie. Yeah,
and I think that what you just said kind of helps us translate into the next track, Rolling Stone, and that's just playing off Bob Dylan's Like a Rolling Stone.
Yeah,
not giving a fuck, just gonna keep moving through the world distressedly and never gonna be a man that's gonna settle.
Correct.
That's it.
And So next song is Rolling Stone.
So starting with the Rolling Stone, I mean, this track, it starts off with some gnarly electric guitars, but then goes straight into like some nice, like smooth acoustics, which I think was a really good transition.
The video is really cool and atmospheric too.
Well, I was actually going to mention that, because the video is actually where the trilogy album cover came from, which I thought was a nice touch. Because that video just went viral just because of this time era, and this was really kind of, I feel like that song is what solidified a little bit more with people kind of finding him. It was a simple video. It's just him and the girl.
Yeah, he's sitting in a chair. He's just singing.
Yeah, just singing. And it's just like everything was more captivating. Yeah. Everything just felt good. It caught your eye, and it was very simple, clean. And I think honestly, you probably couldn't get much of a better album cover than taking from that video. I also feel like this song was more of a serenade to what he was trying to serenade to, the Lonely Star, what he referenced throughout the album as the Lonely Star, But in all reality, I would imagine he's really the Lonely Star. Yes, I feel like that's more of an underlining kind of meaning that no one's really going to really catch. Yeah, which again is the whole thing of this album, how he's got all these girls, but he's still lonely. That's the epitome of life. Because we're always chasing something. We're always chasing something that's better, and I feel like that's the epitome of life, and that's where we go wrong. Especially if we have something, especially if it's good. But that's why sometimes, and I know there are people who do step back and maybe change that mindset, but then also majority of why relationships goes bad is because maybe one is looking for something better, when it's like, hey, there's always going to be something that's better, no matter what it is in life. If you got a nice car, there's somebody with a better car. If you got a nice house, there's somebody with a better house. You can have $1 million, somebody with $2 million. The purpose of life is like, you got to know when enough is enough. Like, there's nothing wrong with chasing after a solid life and chasing after your dreams and everything, but there is a point where it's like, okay, how much do you need? You have to find blissfulness in the simple things that speaks to you and makes you happy. That's it. Correct. And I think if you're constantly chasing after more, you're going to lose, which I know a lot of people have. You lose the good things you have because you're chasing what you're trying to be, and it also alters your vision on what you do have. I mean, track itself, it's one of those tracks where I'm going to be searching for it. If it comes up in the playlist, like it's not getting skipped. It's one of obviously the first track on the album itself that got a music video, because The Zone didn't come out until later on down the road. The video for it? Yeah. Well, I just think it's The Zone, and that's the only ones that got videos off this mixtape. Let's see, that was later on down the road. No, there isn't a video for Valerie. There's a video for 28. That's the only. That's the extra one I was thinking of. Yeah, I don't know. Did he do? I think he only did the videos for some of the songs off the trilogy when the trilogy came out. Yeah, because he did Wicked Games for, which is we'll talk about that when we talk about House of Balloons. Yep, and then he did Rolling Stone and The Zone, and then he did off of. I don't think there's any fucking videos for Echoes of Silence. I don't think there's any videos for any songs off there. Because pretty sure there's not. Yeah, right. I think it's just Rolling Stone, Wicked Games, The Zone, which, yeah, so that would just be 3. Well, Echoes of Silence got one. The actual song. Really? Yeah. I've never seen that. We'll have to watch that later. Yeah, we'll watch that whenever we're done. Echoes of Silence was fucking... Man. Well, we gotta... Hold up. We're getting ahead of ourselves. Yeah. We'll talk about that when we do an episode on that mixtape. Rolling Stone, what do you think? Yeah, no, I love it. I'll give it a 9. Nice. Definitely, again, like you said, the melancholy vibe of it is just perfect, and it's simple. He's just singing. I've also thought of it kind of almost like a self-awareness. He's talking about saying how he'll be different. Basically, I see it as maybe he'll be different for the next girl. Yep.
because maybe he's starting to realize, like, hey, this is not a good way to be. Because again, when she first killed herself, he really didn't know how to act, and I think he started to realize that he probably never realized how much maybe all of the girls he was with really liked him, but especially this one, because she straight up killed herself.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't imagine, even if I wasn't into a girl,
that still affects you.
Yeah, like, she straight up killed herself because I didn't want to be in a relationship with her. I don't know how the fuck I would act.
Yeah. And especially when you're adding drugs and alcohol to the mix with not knowing how to feel. I mean, that, again, we haven't been in that position, but to kind of insinuate into a position and just really just imagine, I don't think it really is an imaginable feeling that you can describe, to be honest.
Right. It's definitely something you have to go through to truly understand.
Rolling Stone, I think, is going to be a solid 8. It's starting to pick more back up after Gone, and you get a good guitar sample from, I believe it was Andy Nickerman. I think his song Ayo for Yayo, which is fucking ironic coming from the Weeknd, where that's one of his favorite drugs. So, but as a song itself, I love it all the way through. It's one of the songs I feel like he's speaking straight from the heart all the way through. He's kind of pleading and spilling his heart and basically saying, like, I don't know if I can change or not, but I'm coming to fruition with the lifestyle and how I'm feeling.
Yeah,
pretty much. So I like it a lot. It wasn't a song that I really would enjoy earlier down the road when it first came out, but again, once it's out a little bit longer, you go back and you kind of touch base with the mixtape again, and it's like, all right, I don't know why I didn't like this, but this is hard.
Yeah,
it's hard. So then we got number 9. Technically, this is the last song on the album.
Yes,
when it came out.
When it first came out. Yes.
When it first came out. So we got Heaven or Las Vegas, kind of a play on words, or Heaven or Hell, because Las Vegas is the Sin City.
Correct. Definitely hell.
I think this solidifies a little bit on the hedonism of what Abel's music is going to be kind of solidified as throughout his whole career. Basically, if you don't know hedonism, and I wrote this down, the idea that pleasure is the most important thing in life and that it should always be prioritized.
Okay.
And we can definitely agree throughout any of his body of music, that's one of the
common themes.
So I think that really solidifies that, and it's a good ending and a good outro of the mixtape itself.
Yeah, I also picked up on where he's thanking God for Valerie. Maybe so much in a way of realizing who he has become, or like what he is, and like maybe wanting to change his lifestyle and how he acts.
And it took a drastic moment like that to really have him come to fruition with it.
Correct.
Yeah.
I also picked up something where he basically sees Valerie as heaven.
So there's not a whole lot within this song for an outro itself, but when he does have a moment with God, and then he does relate to himself as God, which I feel like that is more a metaphor for how these women see him and maybe how he sees himself.
Yeah.
Because he's,
especially in that world,
exactly that lifestyle.
And obviously Valerie too saw him as the end all be all, because she ended her life.
Exactly. So as an outro on the album, outro on the mixtape when it first really came out, I want to give it a 7, to be honest, just because there could have been more to it. I feel like it's mainly consisting of a chorus and a post-chorus, and then there's only 2 small verses. That's it. Yeah,
I would probably give it like a high 5, low 6. Not one of my favorites. Definitely not one I would go back to as a song. Production's okay. Definitely kind of like one of those songs that doesn't really vibe with the production of the entire album, I feel like.
It's definitely a little different, but I'm not going to say I didn't like it, because it definitely did have a good beat. I just feel like it could have been a little bit more progressed, a little bit more cohesive with the rest of the album. I definitely think there could have been a lot more to the song itself. I would have liked a little bit longer verses. I would have liked a little bit more, like I've mentioned throughout the whole talking of this mixtape. felt like there could have been a whole lot more meat on the bones there.
Okay.
Especially for an outro. That's where you want to...
It is kind of a longer song with not much there. It's like 5-something minutes. So it can be at times a struggle to get through. But for, I guess, at the time, like we said, it was the outro to the song. But now with Trilogy, then he released a 10th and final song to it, which is Valerie, which I think is a great outro.
Exactly. It's something I feel like he knew it deserved, and that's why he added it, which in retrospect I feel like that played better off as the outro.
Yes.
It fit better.
Yes.
And it's what we deserved after it.
Correct, because at the end of it, he's finally realizing that he loved Valerie.
Mm-hmm. And again, it kind of goes back to fruition, like that. Even though that was his Thursday girl, the feelings that he really was suppressing actually came to fruition. He actually realized he did love her.
Correct.
So,
and he talks about how he loves her, he needs her, and he was talking about how she'd rather be dead than alone.
Yeah, and basically still knowing that he's still cheating on her on every other day.
Right.
She's still staying at home alone, waiting to be that lonely star. Yep. I know you mentioned this earlier about Valerie not really being one of your favorites, but when that came out, it just hit.
I think I didn't really listen to it when the Trilogy came out because I wasn't like big on Thursday, the mixtape as a whole. I was much more into House of Balloons and Echoes of Silence. So I love Till Dawn, Here Comes the Sun, which is the 10th song for Echoes of Silence, and then 28, which is the 10th song for House of Balloons. But yeah, now that I'm more into Thursday, definitely like Valerie as a song.
Going into this podcast and this week's topic and just doing the research, you kind of get more. I started to like Thursday as a whole much more, going through it more. Obviously, there's songs like Life of the Party I would always go back to. The Zone I would always go back to. Rolling Stone, definitely one of the songs that I would like to search every now and then. It wouldn't be too often, but actually going through this whole mixtape as a whole, adding Valerie to the end, I definitely began to have much more appreciation for it, especially with the storyline that it created.
Before I told you we were going to do this mixtape, did you even really know what the story really was, just listening to it over the years?
I did. It's very hard because I mentioned this before the podcast that there are songs that I knew about and I knew it was a conceptual album, but going back into it again, you're gonna miss things,
right,
if you do not pay attention throughout the whole thing. So listening even on the second to third time before coming into this podcast, there's things where I just didn't know. I didn't realize Valerie was a Thursday girl until a few days ago.
Okay.
Like actually listening to it over and over again, because there was times where I was like listening to the album in the car and just had it in the background, not really listening to it.
Paying attention.
Exactly. But then there's other times where, like the other night, after editing, I'm just sitting down. I'm literally going verse for verse, and I'm just like jotting down little things. And then I'm like, all right, in my head, I'm over here like a conspiracy that theorist.
There you go.
There's just imaginary dots being put left and right. I'm like, all right, that connects there. Oh fuck, that connects there. Yeah. So it's one of those things where, like, again, if you haven't listened to this album, it's one of those things where you're going to want to listen to it a few times to really get the full picture and what he's trying to tell within the story itself.
Absolutely.
So yes, there were some things I did not know before coming into this podcast. But with that being said, now having a new love and appreciation for it, knowing everything I know now, great mixtape.
Absolutely.
Great mixtape. Which is why it makes the trilogy what it is.
Correct. All three of them are just beautiful mixtapes. I've even just, since I told you, like, let's do this mixtape for our next episode, I did some more research myself and even got into it a little bit more. Again, like early on when it came out in high school, I was not into it and didn't really follow the story or anything. But there was years later, I got into it again, and then I started researching some things and kind of got the synopsis and basis of what the story was, but I even still at that point was not deeply into exactly what it was. And then really not till I sat down and went through it lyric by lyric and was really paying attention that I fully got the story, and I was like, this is beautiful. Yeah. This is crazy. Again, now I think it's definitely inspired by something that's happened to The Weeknd. I don't know if it bar for bar 100% is a true story, but I'm pretty sure that it's definitely at least inspired by a true event that's happened in his life, because that's literally what the trilogy was about back then. House of Balloons is just walking into his world. Yeah. I would say Thursday is then his relationship with women. Yep. And then Echoes of Silence is, I would say, a synopsis of his world and relationship with women. And just his overall, what he was going through at that time. Because the man was selling drugs, evicted God knows how many times.
Jumping people for their Jordans.
Literally, like, and that's the thing, like, obviously, you know, he makes real, like, R&B type, like, poetic love-ish music, but man, kind of low-key was a thug too.
Honestly, to kind of put everything in perspective, one of the, not the best mixtape from the trilogy, not my favorite.
Definitely not my favorite either.
But that is not to say, like, this is something that you don't have to listen to, because this is something that you, in order to really, if you're coming into listening to The Weeknd a little bit later, like when My Dear Melancholy, or like Beauty Behind the Madness, like if you started to listen to him then, you're not really going to get the full picture of what he truly was until you listen to the trilogy of like how he came up.
Yeah, I definitely would preach to anybody, if you truly wanted to like get into The Weeknd and kind of see who he was, start with the trilogy. Yep. Absolutely. Yep. Listen to the very first song of House of Balloons, High for This. That is not only the most perfect intro to that mixtape, it's the most perfect intro to him. You want to be high for this. Like, you want to be not only high for the album, you want to be high for him. You want to be, not only obviously he's talking to a girl in the song, but you want to be pretty much intoxicated for what you're about to experience with this dude. Yep. And listen, yes, I know not everybody has vices and is into getting intoxicated, but you can enjoy his music sober, absolutely. But whether you drink, you like to smoke a little weed, if you're even a heroin addict, nobody's judging you here. Yep. It's definitely different when you are intoxicated in some way and listening and vibing to his music.
I definitely feel like that helps. It's one of those things where you have to, I feel, and I hate to say it, but like some drugs and the alcohol definitely kind of let you tap into more dopamine feeling.
Absolutely.
And you get a different experience if you can have a few drinks, have a few joints, and just like you're just vibing out to some music that it provides more of a creative space within yourself, and it frees everything.
Correct.
You free ambitions. You kind of just, it's more lively, and I feel like that's what his music kind of tends to, especially from his earlier days like this.
Because he was intoxicated the entire time he was recording this.
Yeah, the entire time. So if you haven't listened to it, I definitely would recommend it to really get a full feel of who Abel was coming up, and definitely go do your research. Definitely listen to House of Balloons, Thursday, Echoes of Silence, the whole trilogy album. And even stuff before that. If you can get your hands on like his stuff from SoundCloud, definitely do so.
Oh yeah, there's one of our personal favorite OG songs that's not even on the trilogy or any of those mixtapes. Enemy. That song hits
every time.
And that's from the old school days. And then even his earliest features, Crew Love on Take Care with him and Drake, and then one of the OG features that I always go back to is him and Wiz Khalifa. Remember Me? that opening line by The Weeknd opening verse is just, that always hits, and it's very atmospheric.
I think that's going to be another podcast topic, is going back on our favorite concerts that we both, like, each of us have been to. And
to get together, or just overall?
Overall, we can touch base on the ones that we've been together with, and then the ones that we've been through overall, like just the experiences. Because we've had a few experiences at concerts, but we've also had our own experiences separately.
Yeah,
and it's just, you've seen some artists I haven't, I've seen some artists you haven't, and
absolutely.
I think that'd be a good topic.
Absolutely.
So you want to close this out?
Yeah. Thank you guys for listening. Again, if you have not listened to this album, definitely give it a listen. It is one of The Weeknd's absolute best. And if you are new to The Weeknd, please give the whole trilogy a listen. That way you can really understand who he was when he first coming out and why everybody listens to him.
Exactly. All right, guys. Well, we appreciate you listening. Until next time, let's take it out. This is Zach.
This is Gavin.